Welcome back to episode 4 of this Thermodynamics series. Today we're going to be talking about heat pumps and refrigeration cycles and power cycles. And I probably could explain that more efficiently, but who cares? Today I'm listening to Mos Def, Quiet Dog Bite Hard. You can't hear it, of course, because it's in my ear, but it's keeping me going right now. Don't feel as fried. I just took a nap, so we're going to get into it. Before we tackle this problem, which is about heat pumps, we're going to talk about cycles. And I know we kind of already talked about cycles and how they apply to the first law. We're going to go into some more real-world application. So the first cycle we want to talk about is power cycles. And so the way we're going to draw it is we're going to have our little system here. And we're going to have some heat transfer in. We're going to have some heat transfer out. And we're going to have some work developed by the cycle. When it comes to efficiency of a cycle, you're going to have values switch around and all that. But it's always going to be what you want over what you have to put in. So for example, the efficiency of a power cycle is usually given by eta is equal to the work of the cycle over the heat you have to put in, or the heat transfer you have to put in. And so what this means is what you want in a power cycle is the work. You want work developed. And what you have to put in is this heat in. And so what this Q out means is things aren't perfect. Ideally, you want to have just to put all your heat in and all of it transferred to work developed, right? But that's just not realistic. You also see the efficiency equation as 1 minus the heat out over the heat in. The next cycle we're going to cover is refrigeration cycles. The goal of a refrigeration cycle is to create a cold reservoir. And so what you're going to have in this cycle is you're going to bring in heat from the cold reservoir, and you're going to dispel it to the warm reservoir. And to bring this heat in and then dispel it, you require some power input, There's a variable for it. It's the Greek b beta. But we usually just use the coefficient of performance of a refrigerator is equal to, in this one, you want heat in. This is called the refrigerating capacity. And it's essentially what you're taking from this cold reservoir, because it makes sense logically. You take heat from a cold region, it's going to get colder, and the goal of it is to create this cold reservoir. But this time, what you require to get that refrigeration capacity is a power input. You might also just see it as work of a cycle. And with these kinds of cycles, I like to kind of just look at them. And if you've ever taken circuits class, even if you hated it, there's probably one thing you remember how to do, and it's nodal analysis. If current goes in, and it breaks off, that current has to add up to the current that came in. In this one, we can say the in's equal to out. So the heat out is equal to the work in plus the heat in. The last cycle we're going to cover is heat pumps. If you look at how it's going to be illustrated, it's going to be pretty similar. What's different is the goal. This time you're still going to have heat taken from the cold reservoir and heat brought into the warm reservoir. And you're also going to have a work input. And so with a heat pump, the goal of it is to create this warm reservoir. So in other words, we're caring about this heat out. So as far as efficiency goes, we use coefficient of performance of a heat pump. It's still what we want over what we have to put in. So it's the work input in the denominator and the heat out in the numerator. And applying that whole what goes in must come out thing, work in equal heat out, which is the exact same thing as we said before. Alright, so this problem says the coefficient of performance of a heat pump cycle is 3.5 and the net work input is 5,000 kilojoules. Determine heat transfers, heat in, and heat out in kilojoules. First thing we want to do is draw the cycle, where everything happens. We have our cold reservoir here. We have our warm reservoir here. So we know that a heat pump is going to require power input. And thankfully we're given that the power input is 5,000 kilojoules. What we want to find is this heat in from the cold reservoir and the heat out to the warm reservoir. So what we can actually do, first thing, is use our equation. The coefficient of performance of a heat pump is equal to the heat out over the work input, or net work, whatever. So now we just do some basic algebra and we arrange for the heat out, and we find that it's just going to be the coefficient of performance, which we said is 3.5, times the net work, which is 5,000 kilojoules. And when we do this, we find that the heat out is equal to 17,500 kilojoules. To find the heat in, we're going to do that in equal out thing. So we know heat in plus work is equal to the heat out. And say heat in equals the heat out minus the work in. Heat out, we have 17,500 minus work, which is 5,000. And we get that the heat in is equal to 12,500 kilojoules. So that's going to cover the kind of level of cycles you'll get into in this chapter at least. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope, I can't talk. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope oh my god, I'm trying to say hope, but I keep saying help. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you learned something.